I'm going to pull up my agenda here.
And Jesse, just let me know. I don't have access to everything. I just realized I only have access to the budget. So you let me know when you want me to show that. I can't show anything else. Well, actually, I do have PDFs of everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is the main thing.
Let's do it.
I mean, I'll just open it up first and see if anyone has any comments about the general application and the web page and checklist narrative. We've definitely we had a little meeting. Was it yesterday? It seems so long.
No, Tuesday, 2 days ago.
And then was it? And then we had a budget meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had a budget meeting yesterday. You're right. My bad.
But no, there wasn't. I
don't know. What day is it? Yes.
We're all in the same place this week. I'm glad. So yeah, we've got we've definitely got quite a few budget things to go over. So checklist is looking good. It is letters of support. Then we need the timeline, a budget, and a narrative. And that is it. So
do you want me to share the budget?
Yeah, let's just go to that.
So just kind of some context for you all. So Jesse and I met with Madison on Monday, and originally the grant was sitting at $450,000. And when we told Madison that, she didn't say no. She wasn't like, absolutely not, but there was some hesitancy. She did maybe ask us to consider reducing the budget. So we actually reduced it all together. So I want to show you two things, and we're going to ask for your feedback. So currently we've actually reduced it to $348,000, mainly because we removed, originally we had that wetlands, if you guys remember from last week, which was not supposed to be in there, was $75,000. So in essence, by removing that and making some adjustments, we get the full grant down to just shy of $350,000.
Miranda, was the wetlands removed? Was the wetlands removed because that's not within our scope, it's someone else's?
Well, it's a little complicated because that's really sits with Eldora, and so the problem is like we just don't really know where Eldora is at, so it's inappropriate to stick it into this grant when we just don't know what the future of the wetlands is even going to be.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
the reason is just we haven't like fleshed that area out for this round, and we really need to get to hear from the Insight people and the Army Corps about what those plans are before we.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's, and that's got delayed because of COVID, and it could get delayed even longer. So it just was not, Jesse was going to have to also add it into the narrative. The narrative is already 5 pages. It can't be longer than 5 pages. There was just no way to kind of successfully incorporate it. So what we have here is we made some tweaks here. Originally, our interpretive signs were at 12. We dropped it down to 10. Originally, we had mechanical doors. Obviously, that's really cool, and it would be great to have mechanical doors, but Eric brought up some good points of, we're just not, what if with electricity, what if the power goes out? There's a lot of contingencies. And so I asked Nikki and Chris, do they really feel like mechanical doors are truly needed? And they said no. They said the foot-operated door opener, which is really just that attachment you put on the door, that would suffice, and those only cost $30. So it changed it from $15,000 to $60.
To $60?
Right. So that's a huge savings. $17,000 worth of savings right there. We had changed
just those two line items there. That's taken off, $100,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was just it. There was just a slight pause when we told Madison the amount. I just thought that pause just gave me enough cause to think I would rather we have this secondary, more modest budget that she would fund rather than overshoot and lose it all.
Yeah.
Well, when we first met with Madison, we told her we were looking at 300 to 350, and she was like, "Oh, that's great." Her reaction was way more positive than when we were 450. She was like, "Oh, hold on." So I feel good about where we are. So here we just actually we didn't end up adjusting these. My apologies. So we kept these the same. So the mulch was added after the DDA meeting, which we talked about last week, and then we added the trail groomer and the industrial mower into this. So now we're looking at the regular budget, $350,000, but then we also put just shy of. We also made a reduced budget, which I go back up here, we reduced the number of benches from 12 to 10. We reduced the number of picnic tables from 10 to 6. We reduced the interpretive signs from 10 to 6. Again, sorry, we removed this altogether and did the foot door openers. And then we kind of came down to, we actually ended up keeping the trees and the walking trails the same. But then we kind of discussed, you know, do we really feel like a trail groomer machine and an industrial park mower are both needed, or is just one needed? This reduced budget is actually basically a $20,000 difference. It takes us to $327,000.
Okay, Miranda?
Yeah.
Okay, what would be the difference in the working of a trail grooming machine versus a lawnmower? And don't we already have a lawnmower for Chipeta Park?
We do have a lawnmower. So it's actually Stephen LeFavor who had said, like, if you can, might as well, you know, get some new machinery out of this grant. And so that's where the industrial lawnmower came up. The trail groomer is this like device that you hook up to the back of the baby tractor that just really helps to groom the trails. You know, takes the kind of the manual labor out of it. The big concern is just the, you know, manpower that we just don't have. And so
yes.
I think our question before the board tonight, we've got a couple questions, but let's just kind of talk about these.
Okay.
Do you all feel like both are really important to ask for, or is there one machine or equipment over the other that you feel like is more beneficial, and how do you? I know, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know where those guys are these days. I know that Nikki had a rough day today.
Well, you know, as a senior with some mild physical problems, I would opt for the trail groomer because I want to walk on a small, on a smooth trail. I don't want to have to risk myself physically dodging rocks and boulders and divots and pits and whatever.
Okay. What do you like, Brian and John? What do you guys think?
I think that's a good point. But one question is that it seems to me that the trail groomer machine is a little bit disconnected from the rest of the purpose of this grant. I can imagine the trail grooming machines being used on the Nederland town trail system, but this grant is really about the park.
So there is the trails being built though. So that's the other kind of thing I'm trying to get from Nikki is the quantitative data of. I want the exact number of the number of mileage of trails restored, and then the number of new mileage of trails built.
Okay.
I mean, it's quite significant. There's probably, my guess would be about a mile restored and a half a mile of new.
Yes, because we are building new, wider trails that will require more upkeep and maintenance.
Yeah,
it seems. Because right now the trails that are there aren't really kept up so much. Like that's not, part of the what anyone's regular job circuit. But if we had the groomer, you just run it through, and you don't need someone going out there with a shovel, trying to flatten a trail. So I mean, and a rake. So I don't know.
I think Nikki said that it would be able to winter groom it too. So to create a more of a winter trail with a different attachment. So.
Right.
Jesse, out of curiosity,
my 2 cents is if we already have the grass cutters, the trail groomer seems a little more appropriate too.
I guess my feeling is, Jesse, though, obviously I just added in a 1 here. It's a difference of $2,000. It's like, I almost think between these two budgets, it's still almost 20 grand less. It's like, you still need to just keep them both. And it's not if everyone's okay with the other areas we cut funding, we keep them both.
I mean, how much is the other one at? Was it 340 something?
It's at 348.
48. Yeah, I feel like that's within the 350 of their regular grant cycle. So I think that's reasonable.
So what we were going to do, so you all know, is we were going to submit this one. And then if it came down to negotiating cost, that's when we would then bring in the reduced budget. We wouldn't ever submit this.
Okay.
This is more internally speaking.
Okay.
This is what we would do. This is the reduced budget that we would operate on. So I mean, I don't know, thoughts about just still keeping both on because we cut, I mean, we obviously cut huge expenses just here alone, and then making these adjustments.
I do think we should keep both on, and I also think that the case that you make there is how much cost savings in just labor hours, both of those things will give us, that they are really a cost inefficient thing to cut.
Yeah.
This is the first time GoGo have ever allowed kind of external accessories to be purchased within the grant. So we would be crazy not to try and take advantage.
Yeah, we should definitely go for it.
But if you had to toss one, it sounds like we're all voting to toss the grass cutter.
That's what I'm
My
hearing.
only reservation about that is that while I'm kind of in favor of the trail groomer myself, I know that Chris, a mower, Chris Pelletier, and Public Works do know what they need, to some extent. I'm not there on the ground with them every day. So, that would be my only reservation, categorically saying that we prefer the groomer.
Well, then let's go with the thinking that we'll keep both of them in, and then if we have to negotiate one or the other, then we'll cross that stream when we come to it.
Yeah. I think that's helpful. I think the other thing we ought to talk about a little bit is the part-time parks employee and how we might want to broach that. I mean, we're definitely not cutting that from this cycle, because it is something that we've realized that we're really are going to need, especially for this first busy year if the grant gets awarded for 2021, when a lot of the building and the construction and the maintenance is going to be really high upkeep. But then, the goal is to try and get this on some budget discussions for the future.
Has Public Works requested that? I mean, we know that they're overworked and they're always shorthanded, and we keep adding things, or things keep being added to their plate. So why is there a question about adding a part-time employee?
I think it was just more of the need to integrate it into the narrative.
Okay.
Jesse's looking to connect with Nikki to get, this is going to be a parks only employee, where most of our Public Works team, including Nikki, is like streets. And so what is a part-time 100% committed to parks look like? Because her job description, I sent it to Jesse, it's like 3 lines of parks, and then, but it's like a 5-page job description. She does a lot of other things aside from parks. So we just want to make sure that we're communicating effectively what this person's job would be. We have to have it in the grant, and then really it's on town staff to be figuring out how to fund it for 2022. Which would the board of trustees' mind is that this along with like the sustainability coordinator are 2 new positions. And in 2 years from now, we have to figure out how to fund it ourselves.
It's tricky to kind of get into the details without a staff member here, but it was.
I just texted her and asked her if she was going to join, Jesse, but I haven't heard.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could, we always touch base with her tomorrow. But,
My main interest is just how are we going to broach this with the board of trustees too about the.
I think I already have. I feel very confident that, well, obviously at least Eric, and I see Jonathan's on. Eric, Jonathan, the mayor. I've talked to the mayor about this a couple of times. I think the ball has already started. It's just a matter of adding on the other 4 trustees. So I'm happy. Chris and I are happy to talk about it, because we have to have the same conversation about the sustainability coordinator.
Yeah, and that's not so much for this. It's not so much for this grant in particular, but as we move forward, we need to make sure we're getting the parks need for the future.
Yeah, we have the budget session number 2 next Tuesday, and that's when we'll really start to dig into the line items. And so I think that's, last time we just kind of talked about what are each of our department's goals, and this next meeting will really be, again, not for this year, but as we talk about the new positions that we're trying to fund for 2021, that's when we'll make sure it's on people's mind that these are going to be 3 positions that move into 2020.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you guys have, I mean, how does this look? Do you feel, I mean, more specifically, do you feel comfortable with this budget of the 348,000? Do you feel comfortable kind of where it stands and the adjustments that we made yesterday?
I think that they're excellent.
Great. John and Brian, how do you feel?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it sounds like if your GoCo contact's reaction to 450 was possibly a little bit of shell shock, but her reaction to 350 was happiness, then this seems like the right move.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, we definitely, you know, she was so sweet about it, but she was like, maybe you should have a contingency or like a backup budget. We were like, oh.
She gave us a few little examples saying that there was another project that had just been funded. They had asked for a children's fishing pond and they had asked for tennis courts, and GoCo just funded the fishing pond. So, you know, yeah, they may want to work with us further from this and pick out stuff. So this is really helpful, I think, having this. Well, these are our priorities.
No, I will say I don't want to have to cut Chipeta bathrooms. And I didn't really bring this up yesterday, Jesse, but I was thinking I had a call today with the CARES funding team. It is possible to move this 15,000 or potentially 20,000 under CARES. You know, that we only get $69,000 under CARES funding. And so it would be nice not to, but that's how we're going to pay for the visitor center bathrooms. But if we had to cut, Jesse, because they felt like we'd, you know, kind of like the tennis court, you know, pond thing, like we could cut the Chipeta bathrooms and get that money from someone. If we had to, but I don't want to. But if we did do that, that brings our ask down to 340.
So what's the determining factor with that one, Miranda, as far as like making the decision? Is it after the next meeting we'll know if we have to do that or not?
Yeah, so if they award us, they could say, we're going to award you, but we're only going to award you 300,000. And I think at that point in time, we'd look very seriously, Jesse and then ProSab team, we look very seriously at cutting this and moving that money elsewhere.
Okay.
But that's what one's awarded. And now I originally thought that we could reapply. And I think something that's important for everyone to know is that that is actually no longer the case.
Yeah, that's the other big thing she told us.
Right. If we don't get it this round,
we cannot reapply.
We don't get it. And so I don't want to remove these now. I really, you know, funding is limited, but I think this is probably our biggest cost saving. If we had to cut, we would just cut the bathrooms altogether.
But there is money from somewhere else down the line where we could grab money for the bathrooms in Chipeta?
Yeah, it's actually not, I mean, I would really have to, yeah, I mean, we could. So right now we have about $40,000 that we wanted to refit the visitor center bathrooms and then do upgrades to the multi-purpose room to allow for hybrid board meetings. So we really have to bring it back to the Board of Trustees to say, like, do you want both bathrooms refitted and forego the multi-purpose room? Or do you want to just pick one set of bathrooms and keep going with the multi-purpose room? But we already have the money.
I'd like to keep it on for now, for sure.
I do too. Yeah. So, but Natasha, to answer your question, we've already been given $69,000 of COVID-related expense money. But we obviously, this is an opportunity to get it from a different funding source. So of course, we want to get it from GoCo, then use the money we've already been given. But that is a backup plan, is that the bathrooms could get taken out in its entirety.
Okay, so you're just preparing us, but there's really no fallout. Okay.
Not yet. We're going to keep it. We're going to keep it, and I hope for the best. But again, Madison, I feel like in the work that was done yesterday, kind of with the team, we're much more in line with the conversation we had with Madison, 6 weeks ago, Jesse? I don't remember. Yeah. You know, we're much more in line with what she originally felt comfortable with. So I feel really good about kind of scaling back and being in that initial discussion spot where she was like, great, 350, it sounds wonderful.
Yeah, I do. I want to just go in with kind of good feelings about this, because it's super competitive. You know,
yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna stop sharing then. Everyone's fine with that.
Great.
And then if you haven't had a chance to, I was gonna say, do you want to talk narrative? If people haven't had a chance to look at Jesse's newest narrative, it's on our website. We'd love feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, any feedback on any of that would be. Oh, and I've got a piece, should be going into it should be in the paper today, I think, a prosab. It's mostly just pulled, little sentences pulled from the narrative. And we also got ready for, so if we're talking a little bit about more community outreach, we've got a little trifold leaflet ready to go, and so that we got started to get distributed. I'll send you all this too. It's just like threw it together, but it has the map and some little blurbs about what is going on. So nice. I'll send that out to you, and then hopefully we can start printing some of those, and yeah, maybe you can print them off yourself too and spread them around if you can.
Okay.
I guess the other outreach, Jesse, is so we've got the farmers market on the 27th that Mayor Larson and Trustee Taylor are going to man because I'm in town. But then we also have the Harvest Fest, which is right before the Board of Trustees meeting. So that is another opportunity.
And that is the 24th.
Yes. And while we're at it, we're looking for volunteers. There's like a cider station that's going to be staffed by town people and town boards. So if anyone's available that day for even just an hour to help with the cider station and then share information about GoCo, we would love that.
What is the day?
Sunday, October 4th from 10 to 3. No, we're not looking for someone that entire time, but even just, again, an hour would be.
Is it a Saturday or a Sunday, Miranda?
It's a Sunday, October 4th.
Okay.
Jessica, if we can get, I know that's a ways out, but if we can get the sign that day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's definitely finish that up. So yeah, that is kind of our outreach. I mean, we've got some of this listed on the various sites and things. So we've done an online presentation, a walkthrough of Barker Meadows Park, an open forum, presentation to the DDA. We have a presentation coming up to the Sustainability Advisory Board. We've had a presence at the farmers market, started sending out some trifolds, a letter in the paper. We are doing outreach with the Through the Festival organisers, trying to continue kind of good close communication with them. The letters of support we've got are from Alps Coaching, Tadasana Yoga, Nederland Community Library, Wild Bear Nature Centre, a parent of New Explorers Playgroup student. And I'm in touch with Nicole Cavallino, so hopefully she'll get us one from the seniors, and also talking to the manager of the Netherlands Health and Human Services. Oh, and the Netherlands Community That Cares Coalition is going to send us a letter of support too, and possibly City of Boulder again. So it's about 100 or so people, I'd say, have been kind of briefed with the project so far, and yeah, massively positive response. So I think we've done fairly reasonable on that this time.
Yeah.
If there's anything else you think we might need to do on that front, otherwise I'd really like, just to be able to spend the next 2 weeks really focused on trying to make this strong grant, and these conversations with the program manager of GoCo is really, really helpful. Mm-hmm. So, any more budget items or timeline things or components? Do you want to talk a little bit about your RFP attached now?
No, Miranda and I had discussed it a little bit, and I'm okay with where it's at now.
Okay, because I mean, I think we'd be totally fine to do that if.
Well, I don't see the point, because my only concern was the fact that it moved ahead so fast, and I wasn't understanding the logistics. So I felt that it was already a done deal. But at this point in time, because I love the artist and his work, and the fact that he's flexible and will work on a sliding scale for the town. I think at this point, I really don't want to pursue it any further. I didn't understand the process of the RFP and having to go through the. I thought that we could just make the decision and that was it. I didn't understand that it would have to be presented. That everything we do. That involves the money has to be presented to the Board of Trustees. So I'm fine with where it's at right now.
Yeah. But like us to definitely stay in touch with the DDA. I know Hope is on here. Hi, Hope. So if we would like to support the public arts program, I think, in whatever way we can and provide spaces for that.
And I'm sure we'll have more opportunities for that down the line, partnering with the DDA.
I just want to let you know, Jessica, that Mandy Vink, we've restructured a timeline. I think it would fit totally well with what you're doing. And Mandy Vink has been reaching out, and I will send you her email again. But please, she's
last time, so thank you.
Yeah, she sent out a survey, a broad community survey to everyone, and then I think also to ProSab. She sent, it's kind of like a questionnaire to see if other advisory boards or community stakeholders who have responded are interested in joining a committee. And I've loved your outreach, so I hope the DDA can model something like that. But look out for those questions and please answer them. But yeah, thank you.
Oh, I have one more question for Hope and Jonathan, since you're here. Like, do you think one of the things, I know you mentioned at the end of your last meeting, was maybe getting an artist to do something on the electrical shed, which we'd have to put that up.
So that'd be great. About 2 years ago, it looks like the DDA had some funding for a mural, and an artist, the only one that applied, was, I guess, technically chosen to do artwork. She's really great, beautiful. It was going to be on the Rock Shop, but Roy did not prefer the what the image was going to be, and that can be totally worked over. But I feel like that would be, the image would be something that we would vet through kind of you because, or the ProSab board, because you really are keepers of that park. So we have our budget meeting next Wednesday on the 23rd, and I'll bring up that maybe we can offer the artists a place on that electrical shed, and that they can go through maybe ProSab as far as the image and what they would want up there.
Yeah, that would be cool. I imagine that we would like to try and open it up again, and give people the opportunity to get involved.
Yes. What was the image? What was the proposed image on the Rock Shop? I don't remember.
Oh, it's just a beautiful mountain scene, and I think the feeling was everybody already sees mountains, that they wanted there to be more detail, like moose and mountain lions and things on it. So my only thing with that is I feel like the DDA has an obligation to fulfill this person's interest and desire. I mean, they did go through the process, but we can chit chat. I mean, the budget's coming up, so maybe I can mention.
I feel like we're in trouble if we were just like, we're not opening this up to the public right now. The artist was chosen years ago. Like, it should be inclusive to everyone at the current moment.
Well, maybe we can set some funding aside for that, but I think it would be great if ProSab would be interested, and then doing the vetting of the artist and picking the image, that it would not necessarily be a DDA thing, but are also working in conjunction with Mandy Vink, who's creating the public art plan.
Cool.
And where is she from?
She actually manages the Boulder County public art, Boulder City, excuse me. So all the art installations down there, and she was really interested in these small mountain towns and bringing artwork to them. And so she gave us the bid on writing the plan was so low that, regularly they're like, between 15 and 20,000 to have them written. She's doing it for $5. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's
Pretty
a valuable
exciting.
resource that we should definitely follow through on.
Yeah, so if anybody's interested in being on, I guess it's a smaller public art committee, I'd invite you to please fill out one of the applications for it, and I'd love you to join. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to mute you guys.
Cool. And then I'm thinking, like, I think I woke up in the night thinking about this thing that we were talking about months ago. You remember months ago we were talking about giving people the chance to buy a tree or a rock or a bench. So how might we go about getting people involved in that process, and how could we maybe offer them a plaque in return for them purchasing a tree?
Jesse, I'd like to piggyback on that because I was in Chipeta Park today, and what came across my mind was, well, when we came up with everything and the whole process, oh God, I can't remember her name, but a group of people were interested in a bench for Jeff Austin, and they submitted their application. Whatever became of that?
That would be a next question too. Maybe to that for what's. It was the one, behind the fishing font.
Yes.
So that would be definitely a question for Nikki, but something
They submitted the design. I believe it was approved. It went through the whole process, and then it just died. I think that's an example of like some great things that we come up with that have a lot of support, and then it seems like there's no follow through. They just vanish, and I think we have to be really careful about having follow through on these things, so that we're not constantly reinventing
So what I
them.
think I'm hearing is you volunteering to email Nikki about that and follow up.
I will do that. Yes.
Sweet.
I will do that.
Because she paid for it. It was all going through, and it was done. I think they had the draft done, and
yes. Tanja DeWart.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
The one thing is that usually these sort of buying a parks bench type thing with a plaque is a donation, and then you get a plaque in response. And I was talking to Karen about donations to the town and how there's some complication because of the recently changed tax laws and being able to write off the taxes. So I think that's something we need to look into and find.
We found that the donations have to go to like a very specific thing.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I was literally just on the phone with Nikki. Nikki can't join just for personal reasons. I was just on the phone with her. So I think I heard your question, Tasha, but correct me if I'm mistaken. So she is in contact with Tanja. They just submitted the design, and it's a matter of having that engraved and then paid for. And so, but Tanja didn't want to worry about it during the winter, so she's going to pursue it in spring of next year. Okay, so that is full steam ahead.
Okay, and who's going to connect with Tanja in the spring to move it forward?
It's going to be Nikki and I. We're already in communication with her. So she said that she would follow back up with us when she was ready in the spring.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Now, back to the topic of the donations and stuff. I think when I've seen this happen in the past, there's usually a nonprofit like Friends of Barker Meadows Park that accepts these donations and hands over the donations to the town. I don't think we have any such legal structure in this situation.
Yeah, I was thinking nice it would be to have a 501c3 of some kind associated, but I'm not. Yeah, that's not something that's going to happen. But yeah, there are plenty in town who's related. Maybe something could be worked out with them.
Eric, you're talking about a partnership with one of the organizations in town that is a 501c3.
Yeah, it's just easier for charities to accept donations. Be what is our relationship with them, and I don't know how to formulate any of that. I don't know.
Ah, okay. Well, we first have to identify who those related entities are.
Yeah. The other thing I think is useful, though, is that this is not something we need to figure out before we lodge the GOCO grant. This is something that we can do after the fact to fund the music pavilion or whatever the heck else it is that we end up wanting to do after the GOCO grant stuff happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely something that we could have included in the GOCO grant. We done it more than 2 weeks before this, because then you could have had that an in-kind matching fund, from donations, and that probably would have looked really good. But it's super tight timeline for this whole grant. So.
Yeah.
And I think the grant is pretty strong standing on its own. I agree. This would have made it look extra special, but I don't think it is required. Especially, it sounds like the feedback you've been getting has been really positive.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that would be I guess that would be the way to do it if we wanted someone to. I remember the walk around last year. We had someone said, "Well, I would like to buy a tree for Barker Meadows," and I was like, "Well, I wonder how you could go about doing that."
Mm-hmm.
But I like to talk this idea of actually cataloging the potential partners that already exist. Because I don't think any of us wants to go off and form a 501(c) just for this purpose. But if there's one whose mission is aligned and who's geographically proximate to the park, that would be a place to start.
Yeah, I mean, Teens Inc. and Wild Bear both immediately spring, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's plenty. Monster. All feedback going on. Okay, so anything else we need to do? I mean, maybe, do you think we will need to call another special session before we submit, Miranda? Do you think we have?
I mean, I think I leave that more to Tashna, John, and Brian if you feel like because we can't right now. It's just Jesse and Eric and I. We can't add another ProSub member without noticing the meeting.
Like, yeah, should we just? Do you want to just keep checking the webpage, and we'll maybe send you an email when there's any update?
Yeah. Alternatively, is we could have that meeting. It's whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah.
I don't think I feel the need for another special session. I feel like it's really well baked, and I think if there's any changes, it's going to be tinkering on the edges. And
it's really going to be tinkering now on.
It's a good document. I think it's really tight, and we do have space for the contingency if we need it. So I think it's good to go.
Awesome.
I agree with that too.
Great. Well, yeah, just keep up with the outreach then, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Nederland area non-profits parks and open space. So this is just kind of a little discussion here about basically Nedrink and the tennis courts and the skate park, and then the possibilities that we've got of a future bike park too. And again, I know I was talking to Nikki yesterday, and so she has a few updates about the skate park. It was just that they've been having some real difficulties policing it at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Some kids with scooters and bikes who were asked to leave and didn't leave on a occasion. So people have kind of amped up their aggression towards them being asked to leave. And it's been causing quite a bit of damage over there. So
I think we're going
to talk to Teens Inc. too. She says that they could be doing a better job. That is they are supposed to be the ones kind of managing that and telling people not to ride their bikes there. And I also know that Stephen and the employees there, it's not something that they enjoy having to do. Act as policemen. They are really kind of youth organizers and caretakers. So.
Is there some way that we can get one of the older kids associated with Teens Inc. to come in and assume some kind of, I hate to say policing role, but to maybe oversee the policies of the skate park and have some sort of enforcement ability? Because if I think if it's one of their peers, there'd be less resistance and revolting against the policy as it stands now.
Yeah, I mean, just getting volunteers is the difficult thing, I think, for everyone, getting someone to actively do that. And it kind of just falls into whether the idea of us putting together research about it, because we just don't have any of the historical information or the technical information, what it's made out of, how, any of this, the upkeep, the maintenance costs, the policing, so we are the board that's kind of responsible for this park, and yet we know nothing about it.
But all that information should be at town hall. It's not like it was built eons ago. So all that documentation should be on record somewhere there.
It is. We discussed this before. We said we needed to turn it into an FAQ and put it on the website, but I don't know if we ever did. We do.
Okay.
I don't think we did.
And I know when we brought this up, I think it's a matter of, like, if you're looking for town staff to do it, I have to prioritize, and I can't change my regular job duties to do that. So I'm really going to need a pro sub member to come to town hall or to help draft. Really not even come to we can provide you with the documents, but I need pro sub to draft the FAQ. If all I'm doing is copying and pasting it to the website, that's fine. But town staff, we don't have time to put that together.
Cool. This is Brian. I can volunteer for that.
But part of this is this whole Tony Hawk Foundation thing, and
the whole what?
The whole Tony Hawk Foundation thing that people keep on citing, and the reality is that the park was not built with materials that can withstand bikes and scooters. Yeah, it just simply isn't the case. Right. It's just a physical reality, and we need to just state that very clearly. So this it's not to do with something about culture.
I mean, I haven't seen any information. So it does exist somewhere, all this information?
So this is Baumhover. Eric, you're completely right in what you're saying. I actually had a call earlier today with Nicholas Brodsky. I believe he sent you all an email asking about this. When I explained to him it's the engineering behind it, it's that it was not the right PSI strength in the concrete, as well as there's not the proper steel and coping. And
although Randy Lee says that's absolutely not the truth, that it has nothing to do with the PSI. He says it's perfectly adequate. So it's just
who said that?
Randy Lee.
The PSI is adequate, so it's just the coping edges. So what I suggested to Nicholas was he get directly in contact with Randy, because Nicholas has known Randy forever. And my suggestion is that
Randy's told us it was just a safety issue.
Well, if it's a safety issue, it's happening already. And if we have no police force for it, it might be something that we look at allowing in the park at unlimited basis. To be honest, kids are doing it, and from the reports I've been getting in the last year and a half, 2 years, it's 30% of the use of that park is scooters and or BMXs.
I mean, I think that Chris Pelletier was pretty categorical about the material, like saying that he had seen, whenever a bike goes in there, and that the way that it gouges is just makes it impossible to maintain.
So my suggestion to that, I agree, and I've seen it, and Nikki's shown that to me as well. Sorry to interrupt you, Eric. I apologize. There are rubber pegs for BMXs, and there's rubber protectors for the bottom edges of bikes. And I think we could approach it from a more medium ground of, if you have rubber pegs and you have that rubber protection on your bike, you could be allowed. And then we're kind of compromising. We're meeting folks halfway, that if they want to use it, they have to somewhat protect the park and put that due diligence in. But
who's gonna regulate that? Because you can't put that on Public Works. You can't also put it on the teen center.
The people that have written in said that they would be happily to self-regulate each other for that.
Correct. So that was the conversation I had with Nicholas, and he's down there a lot with his kids, and he's, the broader community, I think, would be willing to regulate if they could get that use in the park. And that's a very well loved park. And I do understand town's issues with it. As a former Teens Inc. staff member, I was always going out there, and, the shed there had bikes that was confiscated, and it's gotten to the point where you can't expect Teens Inc. to be monitoring that while dealing with running the school. And it's a lot on staff to have all the responsibility in the building and also have that responsibility outside the building. We may need to bring in Medscape and actually address this on a BOT level with partnership and ProSap.
I've heard that
Really,
Medscape don't exist anymore. There is no Medscape, so who would?
Randy is still kind of there, so it exists on paper, but it's not really much of a board. Ledge Long was one of the other members that had stuck it out for a very long time to do maintenance before.
It's still a functional 501c3, but it doesn't exist. So
correct. So basically, let's bring Randy on and with Chris, and let's look at this from a town perspective, because it has landed in ProSab's lap, but I think it's time to really look at as a town resource. Just like you guys are proposing another park staff member, which I love in this grant. I think skate park needs to be brought a little bit more into the town budget for maintenance. Town is already doing the maintenance and the repairs, so let's get it on the books.
I'm also hoping that it will become kind of mute fairly soon, because we do have interest in from the local excavator to build a bike park. So, and we have a commitment from land from town to provide that land near Nedring Tennis.
I had heard.
Before we move forward with that, Jesse, because I'd like to address that, I'd like to just interject a couple of things based on what Jonathan had said. And there's a couple of issues going on here with the skate park, and one of them is, of course, is the use of two different factions here. Well, these are kids, and the concerns are from the parents wanting to open this resource up to their kids. So I from some of the things that Jonathan had said, I like the idea of maybe a compromise of having a policy, signage, whatever needs to be done, so that the bicyclists, whatever you call them, they have their time at the park. Maybe their time at the park is Sunday from 2 to 4 or something. Make a compromise so on a daily basis there's time set aside so the bicyclists can have their time. And
I proposed last time. I proposed exactly that thing last time. I said, let's do a trial run with just a set number of hours. Let's go back after 8 weeks and measure the damage, if any, what we can see.
Yes. However, a component that we haven't really been discussing that I think is very important to this, as well as with the next item, is the parents of these kids need to take some responsibility and be a part of it for the self-policing during the usage time. Those parents who are involved, like Nick, who are there with their kids, they need to take an active role.
Well, that's why I'm wondering if we can commit October to this conversation, because I think you need to have Public Works, obviously. We need to have teens here. We need to have all stakeholders. I think us having this conversation without the true vetted stakeholders is not, maybe just doesn't make sense right now. And maybe this is.
Yeah. Chris told me he will forbid it. Forbid by. So it's end of conversation.
Yeah. So he met with Karen and I, and so obviously forbidding, he has strong opinions about it, but it is not for town to forbid necessarily. I think it's just a matter of if we can commit to this and having this be whether it's an October meeting or a separate meeting where everybody we can have it well published and everyone who has, vested interest in it comes forward. I think that's probably the best. And maybe similar to GoPo, we create a committee that talks about kind of the framework for that meeting, but we make sure that we have all the right players at the table.
And do you think at some point we could flesh out Chris's real feelings?
I mean, he's got strong feelings, but we obviously are town staff, and so we make recommendations, but it's the board of trustees who ultimately decides how we move forward. I don't know if we need to raise this to the level of the board of trustees, but as town staff, there are opinions that we'd like to be sure, are expressed, but it doesn't mean it's the end all be all.
Hey, Jonathan, from your vantage point, are they mutually exclusive? You can't have, assuming that they decide that the rubber works, et cetera, could you have both groups at the same time?
No, you're not. Yeah, that is a safety issue.
Yeah.
Well,
different bowls too. Like maybe the bikers like the deeper bowl, and that's what I'm wondering. Like, what is there a possibility that you wouldn't have to time slice it?
it really depends on the age groups there and what's interacting. If kids are there with their parents, they're paying a little bit more attention. The teens pay a little bit more attention because the parents are there. I have seen some times where teens are kind of not paying attention to the fact that kids just don't have necessarily as much spatial awareness at the 8 to 10-year-old level as you would at 14. And so the teen goes assuming that the 8-year-old's gonna see him the same way his skater buddy does. And you got a lot of near misses. So there is some validity to separating time.
So it's no different than a swimming
said,
pool, right? Where you've got adult swim and then you got kid time. It's the same concept, just
same
time.
concept
Yep.
where
Yep.
you can have some of that. And I think
Have to step up.
at some point you got to have a trial run, and you just got to give face to people to self-regulate and just do a trial run and do it as a trial run. Try something before trying to figure out all the details of how is it going to be regulated. Let's give some faith into the fact that folks will generally follow the rules if we, in good faith, ask them to in a way that's reasonable.
Sounds like a good idea.
Almost every time I am down there, I kind of wander around there fairly regularly, and there's always little kids on the scooters. There always is. So they're there anyway. And they're
there. So let's make it legal for them to be there, I think Nikki's
around these 20-year-old guys too, and it's a really nice atmosphere. So
I think people can self-regulate down there if we allow it, and if we ask for rubber, I think you're going to get 25% of folks that don't have it, and then you can be reasonable because you can point around the park to all the locals that have followed the rules, and that person will go spend $50 to follow the rules. And I think Julian had said something the other night at a BOT meeting that the rule of law is establishing norms. You can't always enforce that to a T, but let's not worry about how do we enforce it. Let's establish some norms.
Yeah, I'm happy.
If I don't know about BMXing, riding scooters in parks, so I wouldn't know that there are these guards that are possible to buy, and I think work. Right, and they don't cause significant to do it when they use it, then I think we can really countenance it. But from what little I know, I don't think there's much of an argument to be made on the safety front. Honestly, I'm not sure that there is any research or even evidence to say that it's not safe to have BMX bikers and skateboarders in the same park. I'm pretty wary of that. I think it's more the damage issue for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I can agree. Safe. Both skateboarding and BMXing as sports come with inherent risks. And in recreation, there's a concept of the right to risk. And that's a question when you get into providing a facility that is a skate park. As John had said, you have some really deep bowls there. to drop into that bowl on a skate, which is completely allowed right now, is a fairly dangerous thing to do.
And I mean, helmets even required? I don't think so.
Helmets aren't required. Well, they're asked for technically
Recommended.
on the sign, but again, we can't enforce it. So when we're talking about safety, when we've provided a skate park that has an 80 style kind of bowls and feel to it, we have to also acknowledge the inherent risk in that amenity that we built for the public. Skating has its inherent risks as a sport, as does BMXing. You know, scooters, arguably, on the way the kids use them down there, maybe not as much, but they do. And when you get into, yes, the scooters have more risk because they're there with the BMXers and that, I guess I'm a right to risk guy. And as Jesse said, it's an interesting environment. You get from 8 years old all the way up to 45 local guys that still skate and go use those bowls. And in that way, in that self-regulation, you also have a cross-generational interaction. And that's the type of, that's really the type of social capital that recreation helps to build, that providing trails and open space and all of what parks and rec is supposed to be about. So I'm gonna say you're right, Eric. There's safety issues there, but are we trying to take away people's right to risk? Or
no, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying I don't care about the safety issue at all. I don't think it's actually that important.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's saying that maintenance funding is probably the biggest prohibition to this. If we had the funding,
my only concern is the damage to the skate park and being able to keep it up and not, rip it to shreds so nobody can use it. But sure, there's any evidence to support that there is a safety issue, and like you said, I mean, jumping headfirst into a cement bowl is not safe.
Cool. So, I love the conversation, and I think let Miranda hit it. Maybe bring it back, and I think Nicholas is going to reach out to Randy, and he might be really willing and able to bring a new group of parents into helping as a volunteer effort there, maybe even bringing Nick Skate back. So
that would be nice.
All right. I'll let you get back to your meeting.
I guess my question is, though, I'd hate to have the public come and then, we'd have to make sure we're discussing ProSEP stuff afterwards so we can really publicize this, because we want to make sure public knew, and maybe flyers, Jesse, the creative things you do, and that we do a great job of really promoting our October meeting, that it's specific, or at least a large chunk of it is specific to the skate park.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get Jesse back, and maybe I can invite him to present about his proposal for the new bike park.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, because I know, and to Jonathan's point, I know a ton of people we could reach out to directly, but I would want to publicize it.
Yeah,
I would just like to ensure that we have, very clear information about this PSI issue, or not that actually is an issue. And if it's not, I would like to be able to clearly say to the public who might attend that it is not, and that it becomes a safety issue, and then we just from them on that, because I don't want to sit there and debate, concrete material that's irrelevant to the conversation.
And how do you get unbiased, the real? Is there the engineering drawings? Can we get the planning stuff? I don't hearsay. It's this was 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, so it's going to be hard for them to I feel like for people just to remember.
Well, Jesse, what I'd like to do is similar to how you and I have done GoCo. Let's take 2 ProSAB members along with myself, and let's do research similar to GoCo, so we have a presentation, and let's approach it the exact same way we've been doing it, where you have that information up front. I don't know if there's, ideally it would be just one ProSAB member so we don't have to publicize every meeting. I don't know if there's someone on this board who's really passionate about this, who can commit to meeting with Jesse and I frequently about this. Brian, maybe, I don't know if that's you.
I'm not passionate about it per se, and nor am I very knowledgeable about it. I was happy to translate whatever materials we could get from Town Hall into some sort of FAQ for the website. That said, I don't think we should be producing an FAQ until after we've had this stakeholder meeting and rules and guidelines kind of have been established. So with respect to that, I'm happy to be one of the ProSet people who can help organize it. But it sounds like somebody like Jonathan, who has a good background and history in this, might be another good candidate as well.
Because you're not busy enough.
Unfortunately, as much as I'd like to, there's no way I can add that to my plate right now.
Well, I mean, I guess Jesse and I can get it started, and maybe it's it's on the table for other people to join us. And Chris Perret, actually, he's going to call me tomorrow to get a debrief of tonight's conversation. He was there kind of at the beginning. He might be really interested in joining.
Yeah, I did ask for him to bring that information a few meetings ago, but I think he probably...
Okay, let me ask him when he calls me tomorrow. I'll ask him if he's open to joining kind of that subcommittee.
Yeah, because they do have a website that's still up. Tasha, is your mouth moving?
Oh yeah, sorry, I had you muted when you walked away. Hold on. Go ahead.
Oh, I have a reservation about Chris since he's so passionate and adamant about this not happening, or how open he could be to
actual facts, get the actual engineering materials and the all that information compiled for us about how it was built, who it was built by, when it was built, what materials were used.
Well, even with that though, I just kind of question how flexible he would be, as opposed to how flexible he would be. Because right now it seems like he's way at the other opposite side.
I mean, I have no problem being very, kind of straightforward with him that if he wants to join the subcommittee, it's not to push an independent agenda, it's to just purely fact find. And I know he's really busy, and so I don't want to speak for him. There's a high likelihood he won't because he's so busy. But if he wants to, the purpose of the subcommittee is just to find the facts. And that's why I don't know. Maybe Nikki can join us too, but I'm not. Obviously, Chris has a strong opinion. It would not be appropriate for him to be on the subcommittee in its current stage, just because we just want a neutral party to get the bulk of the information we would need for the FAQ.
What about getting one of the parents involved? I think a subcommittee needs to have people who have the strongest vested interest, and in this case, it would be parents of kids who are BMXers.
And I agree. I guess maybe my feeling is that's what the October meeting is, and maybe I shouldn't call this a subcommittee. It's Jesse and I fact finding. We have the October meeting, and then from the October meeting, build out a true subcommittee. So probably using the term subcommittee now is not appropriate. We're just in fact finding stage. And then I'd like what you're saying, I'd like out of the October meeting to have a committee.
Form a committee at that October meeting. Yeah,
I do think it makes sense to get parents involved as well, because then they'll be like, no, this is what we decided and did all this work on, and they'll transmit that kind of energy around it to everybody else, so that
and it's more of a buy-in instead of everything being taken on by ProSab, and then the community starts dumping on the ProSab members, when in a way these are not our projects. These are the projects of these different sub-communities. This is the project for the BMX parents, just like the skate park was the project for the teen parents. We need to get the parents involved in this process and not lay it all on ProSab. We need to have subcommittees made up of parents and that report back, that do all the work and report back to ProSab. That's the community buy-in.
that's cool.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's just a matter of going into that October meeting, being very organized with the facts. And then once we know kind of the specifics, then we break out into the subcommittee that decides what will be the rules moving forward.
Yes.
Okay.
I have to go. I have guests visiting from out of town that I haven't seen in a few years. So I need to sign out.
Okay, well, we still have a quorum.
You
Okay.
still have a quorum? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so how do I sign out of this? How do I sign out of this?
I can kick you out if you want, but I hate to do
Thanks,
that.
Natasha.
Do I just click?
Yeah, I can expel you, so I will go ahead and do that.
No, don't expel me, dismiss me.
Sadly, that's all it's called, is expelling, but goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
It's like a weird power that I have. I can mute people and expel. I can kick them out. No more of you. Get out of here.
Power.
Well, so Jesse, the one thing I would say is I'm remote. I'm remote for the next 2 weeks, and so I've got some information, but we may have to tackle this the first week of October.
Yeah.
It's probably best because we've got GoCo.
Yeah.
So just kind of a timeline standpoint, maybe that's what we'll do in 2 weeks is we'll then hit the ground running on skate park.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll just get all this for a good October meeting about this.
Yeah, great.
Cool. That'll be a fun thing, and I will get in touch with High Performance Earthworks then people to see if they would like to come and maybe present about their proposal.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I'd love that.
I know Nikki was here because she was telling me a little bit about some of the issues that the skate tennis courts have been having. I know there was a break-in earlier this month, and so I guess they are still functioning though. So it's about making some connections with those guys too. I forget, she gave me her name, one of the person's name. So yeah, that's the other side. We'll just try and do the same thing with them.
What are those guys' names again? What are they called?
Isn't it Ned Rink or something?
Oh yeah, Ned Rink. Just Ned Rink.
So I know whenever I have questions about Ned Rink, I usually connect with Dallas Masters. I do know there's a woman, and I think it's
begins with D.
Oh. I know that Lee Tillotson is involved as well, but we can always get the information if we need from Dallas because it's usually who I connect with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously theft was a big concern of theirs, sadly.
When it comes to Ned Rink, you got two different groups up there. You got the tennis group and the ice group. They don't necessarily always talk. Scott Porter manages the ice rink, it becomes the ice rink during wintertime. I can give you Scott's contact information if you need his. I do not know who's technically managing the tennis courts at this point, but yeah, Dallas might be someone to get in contact with. Deb Davenport or her husband also. They frequently use that and have long been part of the group that upkeeps it.
But I know Nikki told me today that they still, like Ned Rink, I just assumed it was one group. So maybe, I don't know whether it's tennis or rink then, but one of them they still have board meetings, and they just had one recently, and we're proposing to turn the little bit of land outside the public land into another tennis court. And Nikki said, well, this should go to ProSab probably, because we said, yeah, we're thinking about putting this land into bike park. So already there's cross communication happening. We don't know who these people are. So, and this is a Netherlands recreational asset on Netherlands public land. So
I'll see if I can find Deb Davenport's email and I'll shoot it out to you. She's a former ProSab member herself, helped write the Trails Master Plan as well as the park maintenance plan. So if she will definitely know if the tennis group is having board meetings, how to get you all in contact with them.
Yeah, that would be great. Just to get us back communicating with each other.
Yeah, I think it would be great for ProSab to have a policy that we get a quarterly update from those folks at one of these meetings. I think it would make sense.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant idea. I'll shoot you that here. I'll have to.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, so I think that's really it. I don't really have anything else to update on the potential bike park, except for we'll be getting back in touch with Jesse soon and hopefully talking about that. Still sounds positive. Yeah. Anything else on this one? We will crack on to open space and trails. And I don't have very much to update on the trails master plan. You are welcome to speak up if any of you else have any thoughts about that. I know we were talking about a map, maybe a little bit.
I mean, I think that a map would be not a map saying this is what we declare must be the trails map, but more of like a connectivity map where it's kind of a concept for how we want to connect the town together through different trails, and what it means to be connected. Like, not just that there is a path there, but that the path has to be at this particular grade and this particular width for it to count as a certain kind of connectivity, and then try to figure out how we want that to be across, find out the reality and adjust, and we can go back and forth from there. But if we had a more clarity on exactly how we want to connect the town with trails and our various parks and neighborhoods, then I think that would be hugely helpful.
Yeah, then maybe we'll put that on the agenda for next week about prioritizing trails too, going through the ones that are used. Right. I mean, the ones that we actively maintain, the ones that we don't maintain, and the ones that maybe we should maintain. Or
the trails that we say exist.
Yeah, that don't exist.
In fact, they don't actually exist as trails, right?
Hey, Jonathan, while you're here too, could I pick your brain a little bit about what you know about the Stinky Gulch history?
Yeah, it was a idea that came about. I think Scott Gorbett was the one kind of heading that up at that time in 2015, though he is at this point checked out and not willing to involve himself anymore.
He came to one of the walkabouts.
Did he?
Uh-huh.
Maybe he's coming back. I think he was one of the folks, and it was an idea at that time before some of the private land was bought. I think at this point that parcel has sold and is either already built or going through the permitting process. But at that time, it was a potential with the former owner to get an easement for town to have a bike trail up through Stinky Gulch and connect up to the cemetery. And we thought it would be a great way to connect the Barker Meadow with kind of School Road and that part of the community where they could go up the highway up there at a reasonable spot and kind of head down by the cemetery and pick up a trail that came down Stinky Gulch. At this point, I'm not sure if it's possible with the change of ownership, but it's always possible, I think, to sell a landowner the potential of selling an easement for a public trail, especially that's part of the benefit of living in Boulder County, and it's quite the norm in Boulder County for landowners to be willing to do that.
Interesting. Yeah, because I walked the road earlier this summer, and it is just a road. I was expecting it to like go into a trail on someone's land or something, but it is just a road that goes up.
Yeah, so it was basically like, look, it's already there. Can we just use it and get an easement on it? Exactly.
So they get some kind of like notional tax reduction or something, or what's the incentive to the owner?
To be honest, and not being a landowner, I've never really put that much thought or look into it, but yeah, I believe there is some type of a tax incentive that's involved.
You can if you grant a conservation easement, so it probably would be similar for this kind of an easement as well to get some kind of tax write-off for it.
Yep. Yeah, it seems like if we want to do that, you package something up and then go to the homeowner and go, hey, if you're interested, this is how you can benefit and the community could benefit, as opposed to not having everything figured out before you talk to the homeowner.
That's right. And I think we also need to have a clear vision for, having that trail, first of all, and deciding we actually would want something like that, and like how that works. I mean, I think Jonathan just laid it out pretty well, but I think it all needs to be sort of written down as part of a coherent plan that we can then take to them and say, this is what we want to do. And I do think that in Boulder County, trails almost increase land value rather than like saying something's close to the bike trail is a good thing.
Yeah, that particular little route is already identified in the master plan as like a priority connectivity. So the data is all there.
Well, could we find out from the town, like, is there any benefit that could be offered to the owner?
Yeah, let's look into that.
Like maybe Miranda would know, like, just like, okay, it's 0.01% reduction or whatever it is, you know?
And maybe that would be a town attorney question.
Yeah, I think it is. I can ask.
Okay, because then we could actually know what we're talking about, and that would be cool.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that, though, before we start charging hours to the attorney, we should kind of be clear on what at least our initial vision is.
I agree. She is costly. I was going to say, what my thought was originally, I would bring this actually up to Karen and talk with her, but the attorney cost is $140 an hour, so we'd like to use that time wisely.
Well, and also, but this answer applies to any parcel, so this isn't like has to be Stinky Gulch. I mean, just having this in our pocket as the truth board, I think that answer is parcel independent. So, I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys to decide, but it seems like we should get that answer.
Yeah, that does make sense.
That's going to be pretty huge for the whole Trails Master Plan, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, and if let's say there is something successful, right, then other people would hear about it and go, hey, well, maybe my thing could be part of it or whatever, right? Because, you know, other people would maybe even jump in on that.
Yeah. So how should we move forward with that? Should we just drafts of kind of what we're looking for and maybe email that? You want to email that to me if there's a couple of people who want to?
I can write up a question to you that says, as a board member, I'm wondering from the town, what is it that we can offer a potential landowner in the future if we identify a parcel that we want to potentially put a trail through? And then they would come back and say either there's, you know, a one-time value, there's a mill levy reduction, you know, whatever the options are.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm happy to continue working on this.
Yeah,
okay,
good.
I'll take that as one of my jobs, and I'll get an email to you.
Cool. Thank you, because I'm forgetting things. My brain is full. Okay.
Yeah, I got a question with these trails and things. I just want to propose, because I bike up to Eldora Ski, right, area, and it's a good steep road. So earlier in May, there was the big do not use this trail. We've cut it for COVID, and, you know, there's a little pandemic-y issue stuff. Well, here it is in September, and I'm biking up there, and it's still closed. And so I'm throwing this out for us to think about with these trails. But on one hand, we've got Hesse Trail that's completely, you know, encumbered by folks. And then we've got the one that's up there that's completely trickled off. It has parking and all this kind of stuff. So for next year, shouldn't we try to get with the Eldora folk, figure out why is that thing closed? And B, you know, we don't really want that closed next year because it's, you know, we could have more places for people to go. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, whose land is it?
Yeah, are you talking about the Jenny Creek Trail, or I'm not sure which?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they have parking up there that it's a whole nother area. I think it could divert some of our Hess people.
So that's the Eldora owned.
Yeah.
Well, I have a quick hearsay piece of information about this. So my understanding is that Jenny Creek Trail is on U.S. Forest Service land that is licensed to Eldora to operate in the winter, but in the summer that license doesn't apply, and you have to cross private property to get to the public land, and that's why they typically don't have access in the summer months. But again, that's all secondhand information that it hasn't really.
But in the winter, it's magically not private property, and you can do it.
In the winter, I think Eldora Resort has organized some sort of compensation scheme for the private landowners to allow people to get access to it.
Ah, so it's a dollars thing.
Yeah, it's part. I think it's also part of their Forest Service operation concession.
Right, but I mean, it sure would be nice if we can come up with the same kind of situation to help our own community out. I think
I totally agree. I'd like to learn more about it and figure out how we can open it up in the summer months. And I think it's a similar conversation to the Stinky Gulch one, insofar as there are private landholders that are probably preventing it from happening, but they haven't also probably seen the plus side of allowing access.
Yeah, except that in the winter they do. And so this is where the Eldora folks also, they pulled back from the wetlands thing and whatever happened down here, so I could see Eldora saying, well, why don't you make that a 1 year 365 you're paying this landowner for the people to cut through there, Anyway, I just want to get others to think about this, and maybe we could solve it by May of next year.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I wonder, we talked about how expensive the town lawyer is. Do you think there's any possibility as a town to get any kind of pro bono legal work from people who are involved in public land trust type issues, or does that kind of fall outside the scope of what pro bono really means?
I mean, I think you could. I think the challenge is, our attorney is a town attorney, and so ultimately everything's gonna have to run through her at some point. But if you had an attorney who could provide kind of pro bono or free legal advice, that's, we try our best at town to do as much research on our own before ever going to her. So if that's available to us, I think that's a great route to go.
So do we have, who's our best point of contact for this Eldora Corporation?
Brent Tregaskis is the GM, and he's on the DDA.
So if I wanted to talk to that guy, how do I do that?
I can send you his email. That's all public information because he's a board member. I'll send it to you.
Okay, cool. Because, I would just love to at least talk to him and just kind of get some facts about it. And maybe there's an easy way to do this.
For sure. And he's the GM, but I think that Hunter, who works at Eldora, is on the sustainability board.
You're right.
So
I'm going to send both.
Yeah, and I think that part of her job at Eldora is also community engagement. So she, I think, would also be a good place to start.
Well, John, I'm going to send this directly to you. Unless everyone wants it. Does everyone need all this information?
No, I think it's great for John to start.
Perfect. That's exactly what we want people to do, though, is just like have this interest in finding the information, and yeah, that'll be really helpful. Yeah, do we have any more about that? That was pretty interesting. But yeah, these are kind of all of these surrounding areas. This is going to be really important. I just had under this last same heading here was just a bit of a talk about open space too, while we're talking about our recreational assets. Because when I was rereading the parks plan, yay, this week, and so I was kind of interested even just about the history of Mud Lake. Like, I thought I knew the history of Mud Lake, but maybe I don't, because I guess it was purchased jointly in 1999 by the town of Nederland, Boulder County Parks and Open Space, and the Wild Bear Mountain Ecology Center. So it's owned by all three of us.
Maybe Miranda has the better information than I do, but I didn't think that the town maintained any ownership. I think it's all the land is deeded to Boulder County.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So part of Mud Lake is in town boundaries.
Right. And I unfortunately don't. Jonathan might know way more than I do.
It's a complicated horse game I've tried to dig into multiple times. At this rate, the best information I ever got about it was with regard to the noxious weeds, which was that Boulder County was in charge of noxious weed mitigation on any of the Mud Lake open space land, including that's in the town of Nederland. Mm-hmm. We're still under Boulder County easements and Boulder County, basically Boulder County land use exists in the majority of Mud Lake, except for where it hits town of Nederland boundaries, at which point Boulder County is still in charge of maintenance, but it's under town of Nederland land use. So it gets a little funky there because Boulder County employees understand Boulder County land use policies, and they don't understand Nederland land use policies because Nederland barely understands Nederland land use policies. So it's kind of a complicated horse game between those three entities. Jill is probably actually the person to reach out to because she has had to jump through all the hoops with the county commissioners, and the town of Nederland has really just been involved in that deal because it is within the town of Nederland limits. So
yes, I can speak to that. So when Wild Bear did the land swap from the old site to the new site, it was all Boulder County approvals that needed to happen. But you're right, Jonathan. I think she had to engage the town of Nederland just to get a little bit of a rubber stamp on that as well.
Yeah, we signed a resolution, but that's about the most we did, and Jill answered most of the BOT's questions. So I think Jill's probably has the most information on that. You could reach out to Steve Sauer. He's the head of noxious weed management. I asked him to look into it, I think 2 years ago, when a resident asked me about some of noxious weed management on the wetlands up there. And he dug into it and figured out that they were supposed to control it and started going up there and protecting the rare species. So he might have a better understanding than anybody else just because he's a Boulder County official that actually dug into who's in charge of what.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. And then the only other open space that's under a town of Nederland asset is the Wingate open space, which I've heard of a couple of times, just vaguely. So it says the Wingate open space is approximately 16 acres. The town entered into a lease purchase agreement in September 2000 for a portion of the property, and another portion of the open space was gifted. Passive trail uses are permitted here. The Nederland Parks Recreation Open Space Advisory Board is developing a management plan for this site.
So I have an update, Jesse, about that. It's a good time to bring it up. So the Wingate representative, whoever, I don't know her first name, she passed away. And so in her passing, Mary, thank you. Mary has now given us, we didn't finish paying off that property. We were slowly buying it from her with an annual fee. She gave it to us in her will. So we're working on finalizing that documentation. The problem is at some point in time, our zoning map said that property was public and it shouldn't have ever been moved to public until we had finished paying for it. So that being said, though, that is something for ProSab to be pursuing the kind of management plan of that, because it is about to become public property and added, and would be considered added into the trails.
Where
I'm about to share my screen so you can see it. Here is the bad zoning map. So it's here, this public here. This should have never been put as blue as public because we don't technically own it yet, but it's what you got going on here at the bottom. As you head into just right off of kind of Big Springs, south of Big Springs.
So that's a pretty big parcel.
Yeah, I had no idea. What is there anything there now, or is it all just empty?
I'm not really sure if there's
Hiked up. There's a trail, I thought.
There is a trail, I believe. Yeah, and I just always understood it to be a social, as a random kind of social trail from the Sundance down to behind, Ponderosa and behind Black Forest. So yeah, I came across an article about Mary Wingate in the local paper in the Mountaineer just a couple, maybe 2 months ago or so, and kind of a fascinating story. She's very close. She's very close to the Carousel of Happiness. She was very interested in preserving wild areas, and it sounds like that was kind of her intention, was to keep that as a wildlife corridor, this area. So I just really interesting. That name, I heard of the Wingate name, and then this popped up. So that's a huge asset, and yeah, it'd be nice to be able to map these places at some point and add that to the trails kind of open space map.
I could go up there for you guys. I knew Mary. Mary was a pretty amazing woman. And yeah, her intent, she had always spoke about that property, was to see it kind of stay there, very similar to the meadow behind the post office. And Glenda
Caroline.
Yeah, Glenda Carline, thank you. Wanted to always see that meadow preserved. And Mary was very similar about that hillside. And I think the idea was for it to become kind of parkland and open space and trails. There's a lot of social trails. There's an old kind of social trail that follows the power lines. And I think there's that old cliff face up there. It's an old big rock that I'm not sure if it's on the Wingate property or is now private property, but there's some pretty cool stuff up there and definitely has huge potential for trails. So
yeah, connectivity for sure.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think more to come. I think we're a little tangled up in legal right now, just because of the fact that our zoning map is not correct. But I will keep ProSap updated on this as we get closer to the closure of the transfer of the property to town.
I mean, I would just take a little advice too. Jonathan reminded me of, like, I'm fairly close with Glenna Caroline, and so and I know that is her intention, is to preserve that land, and I'd like to get in touch with her and maybe talk about the legalities of what she could do to preserve that as a meadow. So, if someone could help me learn about conservation easements or whatever we could do, because otherwise she's in her 90s. She's not gonna last much longer. So I'd like to make sure she talks about what she wants for that land too.
Yeah, so, and Cindy and I would be really your point of contact in terms of pursuing the conservation easement. So I'd like to get Cynthia involved, but yes, yeah. I think that, again, I think the challenge is we kind of have to wait until it's a done deal, but well, I guess part of me is like, once it's a done deal, it's ours, and so I'm not even sure of a conservation.
No, I think Jess is talking about behind the post office.
Yeah, behind the post office.
Sorry. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it's her private land, but I know she is interested in preserving that for the future.
So that would go through the planning commission. It would start with the planning commission, and then it just needs to end up on the plat. And I think that's the challenge, is it becomes expensive because you're going to need to do some sort of survey. And so I don't know if she's wanting to. She could do an ILC, which is cheaper. It's not preferred. And so the question becomes, like, who's going to carry that expense? And if she's willing, great, but that's going to be your biggest hurdle.
Yeah, well, that's what she thinks about it.
Okay. Well, Cynthia and I can help kind of guide her and everyone through that process as we move forward. So you just let us know.
Yeah. Great. Anyone else have any kind of open space related thoughts on that? It's just good to know. Great. Envision 2030. Anyone have anything? I do not.
I mean, I think the one thing you all gave your feedback as it relates to ProSap.
Yeah. If
you haven't given your feedback as it relates to the town as a whole, please do. There's a link on our website. If you go to our website, on the right-hand side, it's the Envision logo. This would be your personal take on town as a whole. We're collecting feedback through the end of September. So please do that if you haven't done so already.
Great. No, I forget to be a person myself sometimes.
Be a human, be an individual separate from ProSap, and fill out the survey. That's funny. I know, I think a lot of people have done that. They're like, well, I already did it. And it's like, well, yes, in your role as a board member, you did it. Now do it as a role as a human, you alone.
Awesome, looking good. Yeah, John, Brian, Eric, anything else you want to add? Otherwise, we'll just keep cracking on. We'll get all these to-dos. I know we've got quite a few to-dos on our list after this one, so I'll try and get those written up and sent out as quick as possible.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Sounds good to me.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. And thank you, Hope, for coming.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks all.
Thank you all for all you're doing. Amazing grant.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy Las
Bye.
Vegas.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.